Hi, my name is Julie Castellano, and this is my philosophy final, where I will be discussing oppressive double binds and misogyny. So, upon learning new perspectives on gender philosophy, the topic that stood out the most to me was the oppressive double binds according to Serene Hirji's argument. Now, this was not only something that I had resonated with, but something that I had a personal experience as a woman who served in the United States Navy for 5 years. Women in a male-dominated environment are often forced to choose how to react or act in a situation that may reinforce the system that harms them. Also, on top of that, Kate Main's argument of misogyny is shown through punishment or consequences from those experiences who violate those patriarchal expectations. So my goal with this video is to give the viewers a deeper understanding of those double binds and how Hirji's theory and Main's kind of go hand in hand, particularly in the view of my military experience. So Hirji's argues that members of oppressed groups frequently encounter these so-called double binds. It is simply put a lose-lose situation or a double standard situation. They both include options that no matter which one is chosen, it would end up contributing to the oppressive system itself. Now, according to Hirji, oppressed individuals deal with those issues between two goals. One, protecting their own well-being and interests, and two, resisting that oppressive system. Now, since the goals cannot be separated, any choice reinforces the oppression in any way possible. So some characters of a double bind is that a person faces a genuine choice. Each option carries a ton of weight at a cost. No option allows that person to completely avoid reinforcing that oppression. And the structure of the situation arises from social oppression rather than a personal failure. Now, the main takeaway is that it is not on the individual themselves, as I said in that last characteristic, but the issue is with the oppressive system that limits those options available. Now, with those characteristics in mind, my experience as a woman in the Navy did demonstrate the double bind oppression. I was often faced with contradictory expectations regarding leadership and professionalism. For instance, if I had acted assertively when working, either when I was working security or when I was in my supervisor position of a team of air traffic controllers, I risked being labeled as aggressive or emotionally unstable. Now, the other option that I risked was my leadership being judged more than when a male was in that supervisory position and possibly had to get aggressive. Now, on the contrary, if I had acted more accommodating, I risked being viewed as soft or weak, or my authority was questioned and I was not viewed as a leadership material or possibly taken seriously. This is a clear example of a double bind where neither option would have allowed me to escape those expectations nor make the oppressive system weaker. If I had conformed to the feminism option, I reinforced the idea that women should be agreeable and kind and soft. Now, if I had acted aggressively when I needed to, I would often face criticism that definitely reinforced how women are somehow problematic in a leadership role. Now, this is not only unpleasant to work through for 5 years, it also had mental self-harm as well. So why do these things matter? Well, this theory shifts that attention away from judging the individual woman and that those choices that they have to make under the oppression, and does put it on the system or society itself. Instead of asking, well, why would she do that, or why wouldn't she say something different, and asking those questions, well, what social structures caused her options to only be those available, right? So while Hirji does explain those oppressive choices, I do believe that her account does not fully explain that the social aspect of it, and this is where Maine's account does come in, and we're going to shift into discussing misogyny. So Maine argues that misogyny is often misunderstood as a hatred towards or of women, and she rejects that as just a naive concept, because she defines it as a system that operates within a patriarchal social order to police and enforce women's subordination to uphold male dominance. Now, according to her, misogyny is not about individual feelings. It functions as a social enforcement mechanism, and women who challenge those expectations are often punished or receive consequences. So this new perspective can help us understand why Hirji's argument remains effective and creates those difficult options for a woman or a oppressed group. I believe that Maine's experience, or Maine's definition of misogyny, can be seen in the documentary on Netflix called Inside the Manosphere. And there's a couple of examples. So one, within the first 10 minutes of the film, this young social media influencer introduces his girlfriend as a dishwasher instead of introducing her by her name. Another scene is where a man is discussing with women on a podcast and shows a TikTok video of a man claiming that women with multiple partners have children that resemble their ex instead of their biological father. Now, the first example reinforces the subordination of women by not using her name and solely naming her an object or simply a housemaid. And in the second example, this is an attempt at shaming women in hopes to regulate their sexuality so that the men are still superior, and using false science to back that up. And as a mother, I can assure you that my child is so much like his father, and nothing of my ex from 5 years ago. So why I believe that Hirji's response is incomplete when addressing oppression, I believe because misogyny does go hand in hand with it. One needs to see that the misogynistic structure of society to understand how those double binds are upheld. So also trying to take that attention off of the individual woman. I agree that with Hirji that oppressive double binds are a feature of social oppression. However, I believe the reason is due to the misogynistic enforcement described by man. And the reason I believe that they are a system that go together rather than separate is because of my own experience as a woman in the Navy. Now, often women have contradicting expectations of behavior in a position or a group, and if they fail to meet those impossible standards, then they are criticized or punished, while a man is not. Now, along with sexism that I dealt with, I do not think that a male-dominated workplace is capable of being healthy for a woman as long as these accounts coexist. Not only is this experience in a male-dominated workplace, the documentary showed those same expectations that women should serve men, remain sexually restrained compared to men, or prioritize the man, and basically accept their authority, even though in a relationship, one does not have authority over another. And if women reject that, they're criticized or shamed, much like in the military. Now, there are some objections that could be that it is looked at as just the TikTok generation or the harsh nature of the military, which, yes, these do hold some truth. The military is not an easy life, and the TikTok generation is definitely a lot different than, let's say, our parents or their parents as well. However, the main difference is that the double binds and the misogyny arise from the broader social structures that are tied to the gender hierarchy as they were decades ago. And the most important other difference is that it is taking it off of the woman. So recognizing that men can experience challenges of contradicting expectations, 100%, I'm not disregarding that. but to highlight why those dilemmas arise and what is done to them when they decide one versus the other. The interest is ultimately served. The interest that's ultimately served is the man. So the patterns affect women of all walks of life, no matter what the social status or job. Hirji's theory of the double bind can go without Maine's account of misogyny. Cannot go without Maine's account of misogyny. They are both needed to understand the difficulties that women can go through on a daily basis. Now, if they did go without one or the other, I think a lot of it would still be reflected onto the woman as an individual. And my experience, my personal experience, is a reflection of these accounts and the experience of the women in the documentary as well. There may always be objections to claims, but for as long as the gender hierarchy is still here, it will always fall into the hands of women being subordinate. Where a woman is on the social totem pole has come a long way from how they were decades ago, if you're looking at like the 1950s or something, but I don't think that they actually ever went away. I believe that they simply became transformed into a new version, or somehow to still uphold that subordination for women. Most importantly, these accounts shift the responsibility off of that woman, and I want to stress that, and show its true colors of how it is on the social system itself. Thank you so much.